As we approach the 2023 elections, a not-for-profit organization, Diaspora for Good Governance, is calling on INEC to subject its voting systems and equipment to multi-stakeholders audit and integrity test. The group is drawing the attention of Nigerians to certain organizational and operational challenges that may impact the outcome and credibility of the 2023 elections.
The upcoming elections, holding on February 25th, will be distinctive in Nigeria's history due to the massive introduction of technology. For the first time, voters will be identified and accredited through the use of the bimodal voter accreditation system, while polling unit results will be uploaded directly from the polling units, transmitted and published electronically for the public through the use of the election result viewing portal. But despite these claims by INEC of its readiness and credibility, one civil society organization, the Diaspora for Good Governance, says there are inherent lapses in the technologies to be used and wants it improved.
We found that the ABIS is not as credible and as efficient as advertised. One key example is to be found in the voter register that was just displayed. In that voter register, Nigerians saw multiple incidences of underage registrations, outrightly fake registrations, and some of those registrations that did not meet INEC business rules. And the DGG is saying that with a compromised voter register, that the elections cannot be credible. And if INEC is advertising ABIS as a software that it's used to process all those registration requests, then what the voter register is suggesting to us is that the ABIS software is not as efficient as advertised.
The city shortcoming in the electoral process is the inability of BVAS to capture attempted and successful accreditation of voters so as to assess its success rate. The group also accuses INEC of attempting to suppress the votes of some geopolitical zones through its system and PVC distribution.
We have looked at the PVC distribution data, and we have agents working on the ground. And we have seen that, for instance, in some local governments in Sokoto State, we have seen complaints from our field agents that INEC is engaged. INEC, by INEC, we mean their field staff now, is engaged in discriminatory practices of issuing PVCs to indigents and withholding PVCs of non-indigents in certain regions. We have also had this from people in Lagos and in some other parts of Nigeria. So we are calling on INEC. If indeed INEC has printed PVCs, why is it distributing PVCs according to region, according to place of origin, or according to the name on the PVCs?
The group is calling for a national dialogue among various stakeholders to mobilize input to support and strengthen INEC's technological systems and technical competencies, and to demand the highest level of commitment by staff of the electoral body to guarantee a successful conduct of the general elections.
The upcoming elections in February 2023 will be distinctive in Nigeria's history due to the introduction of technology. For the first time, voters will be identified and accredited with the use of the bimodal voter registration system, popularly referred to as BVAS, while polling unit level results will be uploaded directly from the polling unit, transmitted and published for the public through the use of the election result viewing portal IREV. But despite claims by INEC of its credibility, the Diaspora for Good Governance says there are inherent lapses in the technologies and wants it improved. Joining us on the show this morning to discuss ways the INEC can improve the use of technology for the election is Chima Christian, member of Diaspora for Good Governance. Welcome to the morning show.
Right. Good morning, and thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much, Chima. Chima, what's been your read, as regards the entire process? Are you satisfied? You're calling for sort of like a peer review, to be able to ascertain the integrity of the process. But what's been your read with the interfaces you've had?
Well, the thing is this, that the Diaspora for Good Governance have looked at all the systems and processes that will be deployed for the upcoming elections. And we have looked at, subjected them to critical analysis and data-backed analysis. And we find that there are avenues for further improvements on those devices. And we are mindful that we have less than 50 days to the elections. And therefore, some of the amendments or some of the quick fixes we want to have on those systems are things we can resolve within the time frame we have before election deployment come February 2023.
All right, so what are some of these improvements that you talk about?
For instance, the BVAS system, which is the system that will be used for accreditation of voters, since it was first deployed in Isoko, Delta states, nobody has actually known the data of its success or fail rates. And the DGG monitored elections in Anambra 2017 elections, monitored elections in Anambra 2021 rather, and then the off-season elections we had in Osun and the Ekiti states. And from our interactions with people, we saw that there were multiple complaints of people who presented their validly issued INEC PVCs, and INEC BVAS could not accredit them. And then we said that the BVAS is a wonderful device, but the fundamental flaw we find in it is that it only records and captures the number of successful accreditations, because at the end of the elections in the evening, what the BVAS shows you is total number of accredited voters. But from our interactions, we know that there are people who presented their validly issued cards and they weren't accredited, and some of them are in their numbers. But we don't have the specific data because the BVAS is not measuring it. So our now suggested improvement is for there to be a slight software upgrade, so that the BVAS is capturing number of successful accreditations and number of attempted accreditations, so that at the end of the day, we can now say with absolute confidence that we have 80% success rate, 90% success rate, 95% success rate on the BVAS. And we're making this point really because of what we saw from the CVR data that was released by INEC for the data capturing devices, the data enrollment device progress, the data enrollment exercise it conducted between June 2021 and July 2022. Of that, INEC says that 1.78 million Nigerians were invalidated. And INEC gave 3 reasons why they did that invalidation. Number 1 is that they have maybe perhaps made double or multiple registrations. Number 2 is what INEC calls fake or outrightly fake registrations that fail to meet INEC business rules. And then number 3 is visibly underage voters. So those are the 3 criteria that the ABIS software, the ABIS by now, I mean the automatic biometric identification software, invalidated the registrations of 1.78 million Nigerians. And when we subjected INEC data, the data that INEC gave publicly, we now saw that the Southeast and the South-South presented an anomaly. At the rate of 49.3%, the Southeast and the South-South accounted for nearly half of all the rejected registrations. Of all the other regions in the country, they presented a national average of 70.2 rejection, whereas the Southeast and the South-South presented 35%. So the Southeast and the South-South presented twice the number of invalidation on that. So we now ask the question, what was the criteria used for these invalidations? And they gave us the criteria and we were satisfied with that fairly. But when the problem came was when the voter register was displayed, we now saw that ABIS is not as efficient as advertised, right? Because that ABIS software that I've told you invalidated the registrations of 1.78 million Nigerians failed, curiously, to remove the many incidences of multiple registrations, fake registrations, and underage registrations that was seen and reported by Nigerians during the voter display of the voter register that was concluded last month by INEC. So because of that, yes, we're now saying that the ABIS may not be as efficient as advertised, and we're now saying, oh no, since we have had complaints from people about BVAS failing to authenticate them, can we now start looking at the data? And we looked at the data, there was no data to show us because the BVAS is not measuring its fail or success rate. And now we're now asking for slight updates on the BVAS so that at the end of the elections, we can look at the data and conclusively say that BVAS was deployed nationwide and it had a 17% fail rate and 80-something% and then we subject that fail or success rate to a regional analysis, statewide analysis, to make sure that there is no region that is presenting an anomaly.
So you're probably thinking that the rates might be skewed in the sense that when you look at the software, for instance, that verified, the people as regards age, underage voting and things like that, it was skewed towards the Southeast. And it's quite curious, like you said, because somebody will have thought that most of those occurrences were probably in the North, and most of the pictures we have seen of voters' card with underage voters were, from the North, most of those occurrences. But now that it's in the Southeast, you say probably that's quite nebulous for you. I also want to go further, but the BVAS is bimodal. So if one form of accreditation is not successful, there are other forms of accreditation that is not successful. And that's why INEC was actually saying that they got a very high percentage in the so-called elections you were talking about and other elections that they have used it. And they keep making the argument that there's no place for incident form, that all of that has been taken out. So what do you say to that?
Now, there is no case for incident form, that is the thing. But the DGG has projected, and we've seen that if we use the data from the abyss to make informed projections as to what might happen, we're suspecting, and there is no data to back this up, that is why we want to measure it, that it may tend to present a situation where we have a high voter accreditation rate in some regions and a high rejection rate in some regions. But again, there is no data. All we're saying is anybody who presents himself for validation on the election day, let the BVAS say we have 100 people who presented themselves in polling units XYZ, and out of that 100 people, 27 were successfully accredited. And then we subject this data to national, state, and regional spread so that we don't see the kind of anomalies. And by the way, there is no region in Nigeria that you won't find incidences of underage voters. There's no region in Nigeria. We've looked at the voter register. There's no region you won't find that. But we find that there is a high preponderance of it in a particular region. And then, curiously, that region that has the highest preponderance of these things had the lowest invalidation rates. And these are the things we are talking about, that the BVAS may be made to function well in some regions and may be failed to reject high number of voters in some regions, as we have seen with the Abyss software. And that is, the Abyss is because you have the number of successful registrations, number of rejected registrations by states. But BVAS is not measuring number of successful, it's only measuring number of successful validation on the election morning. But what of the people who failed? Who presented their PVCs. In Anambra, for instance, the second runner-up of that election, Valentine Ozbo, in the morning of the election, BVAS failed to accredit him with his INEC issued PVC. It was on the several tries that was happened because of his profile. And we saw that there were lots of people who didn't have that kind of profile, who after you have tried 1 or 2 times, they will ask you to step aside. And one person you ask to step aside is 1 vote that you've lost. Okay. And now we're now saying, can we have data that measures all those people we asked to step aside so that we can subject them after the elections to a database analysis?
Valid argument, but I want to go back to the APIs. But it's the same software that was used across board. So are you saying the software is probably skewed in a way or form? It's the same iteration of the software that is put across board. So why is it slanted towards, why are you saying it's slanted towards a region over the other? Because it's the same software.
The claim by the DGG is that the software is not as efficient as advertised. Between that time we made that claim and now, we've spoken to forensic experts who have told us that, for instance, the data from the CVR exercise is loaded onto the software in batches. Okay. And if you're a forensic guy and you understand anything about this software, you can increase the threshold. For instance, the similarity must meet 99% for you to accept, or you can significantly reduce the threshold. And once you have any slight alteration in threshold for acceptance or rejection, then you could begin to see some of the discrepancies we see. And then we're not saying that that is what happened, but we're saying that these systems can be made to work like that.
Okay, so that's why you're saying let's subject it to peer review and let's look through the process. I'm sure your concerns have definitely been pushed out there, and it's out there in the public.
That is why we are calling, the DGG is calling on all the stakeholders, including the media, the civil society, the political parties and their campaign councils, our development partners, and indeed the academia, those of them in the ICT world. The important stakeholders should be brought in to display and demonstrate how these systems work, so that that integrity test we are talking about will confer some form of inspire confidence on the systems to produce credible elections in 2020.
And thank you so much. Really appreciate it.